in the occult beliefs in the higher adept level, and shamans and cultures all around the world, once they achieve that level, as well as in the secret societies, they believe in something called like the crazy clown trickster spirit. It's kind of the same ideology, a whole different rabbit hole, but it's about the spirit that you invite in because you have the knowledge to control it or be an equal with it, that they teach in secret societies, and it can add additional knowledge to you. So I don't think it actually works that way. I think you let a demon in.
Yeah.
I don't care what worldly knowledge you think you have, they're going to be the ones that are controlling you. So I think that's
Yeah.
probably what happens, but or they are just more are they acquiesce to it because it's their belief system, right? They don't want to not be able to, when they die, go to their heaven, right? To Hades or to
Hmm.
Valhalla, wherever you want to call it. That's all the same place in polytheism, different than the heaven where God is. So, yeah, they actually would be not only in a lot of cases being possessed by them, but they're also communicating with them. And they call them the Great White Masters, the Celestial Great White Brotherhood. Some of them called aliens, spirit guides. They're known by a plethora of different names. So there's a communication that they have when you're at an adept level, a high level adept level, and there's also ones that they bring on their people. And so you can sort of see that sort of imagery. It's almost like the theater mask, right? It's hiding who's
Hmm.
really inside of who you're portraying. It's an allegory of that, just as you get it more visible in the theater masks in China, where it actually looks like a demon spirit, right? It's and so we need to sort of understand what their belief system is, and we would see that sort of with the clown look. That's like the Chinese theater mask or the court jester, the Joker, right? And the
Hmm.
Joker was a way of that they created to put a magi in the royal court that wouldn't be recognized as a priest because he's a fool, right? As he's portrayed, that's his image, but he's providing knowledge and advice to the royale all the time. But if the royale didn't like him, they would slit his mouth wide open. And so that's the imagery that now gets portrayed to superhero movies, particularly with the Joker in Batman, who is the image of the Camazotz, which is a demigod out of the Kisha Maya and a branch of the Zabalba, which is just like a Nephilim of other cultures. And so superheroes, just as heroes in Greek culture, superheroes are just an allegory of the giants and the demigods and the superpowers that they had before. There's different kinds of them, and they have different looks depending on who their godfathers were. Yeah, I mean, you have the word unicorn that was put into the Bible for a wild bull.
Hmm.
And you have the single horn that comes up in Daniel 8. He
Hmm.
is the unicorn, right? The unicorn horn is the third eye, as it's understood, that receives the knowledge as a direct access to the divine essence and all of the knowledge of the world. And there's more to the allegory of the unicorn, but just so I don't lose people with where I'm going here. The Antichrist is also understood as the Christ consciousness in the New Age movement. He's going to be that incarnation, as they call it, right? And so he's going to have power to emulate and deceive people that he's the true Messiah, right? So
Hmm.
we know biblically that in Second Thessalonians he receives all the power that Satan can provide him. In Revelation 12, he receives power from the dragon. So there's something that's going on here. Either Satan is going to be his avatar, or maybe it's Azazel, which is another dragon as an original seraphim, a dragon angel, serpent faced angel with six wings, Isaiah 6. But he receives power from Satan and the dragon. So
Hmm.
they could both be part of him. What is also really bizarre is in Revelation 16, out of the false prophet and out of the Antichrist as humans or human-like beings. They are, at the time of Armageddon, you have demons coming out of the mouths of both of them, gather the world
Mhm.
Armageddon. So you could have demons that are in him as well by that sort of understanding. Or you could translate that out of Greek is that he commands with his mouth demons, just as they believe in the occult that Solomon could command the demons. And they draft him as a black magician as well into the secret societies. But they draft all of the patriarchs in and just
Mhm.
sort of reimagine them, right? So
Mhm.
I think you can make
Politics.
a very good case that Antichrist is going to be part human, could be a son of Satan, could be a descendant of angels, could be a son of an angel created sometime in the end time generation, and that he also has this other power that's coming in. And what's also interesting is he's called the son of perdition,
Mhm.
just as Judas was
Hmm.
in the King James Version Bible. And perdition is a root or is a word that is basically, reflecting this whole idea of going to the lake of fire. But it's rooted in the
Perdition.
words of Apollyon, the
Hmm.
destroyer. So you could understand that as somehow connected to the destroyer, Apollyon Abaddon, who is probably Azazel, at least from the book of Enoch. He's the leader of the watchers that was sent to the abyss. And Antichrist is equated with the one who comes up out of the abyss in Revelation 17 as the one who once was, now is not, will be again, but will come up out of the abyss. So there's a connection there. And what's interesting is he also, Antichrist, in Daniel chapter 11, he worships a god of forces, which is the Hebrew word Maus. And Maus is rooted in a Hebrew word az, as. So Maus means forces, as means strong, means forces, and as is rooted in a goat word, and also is the source word for azaz, also meaning strong, as it's used for the strong ones of the terrible ones in Isaiah 25, a branch that's going to die in the end time at the base of a
Mhm.
mountain, Mount Hermon, at the time of Armageddon. Another rabbit hole. I'll get back on track. So he's going to worship a god which is not El or Elohim, El being the singular. It's actually Elah. And it's that female format, which could mean the power of a god or it could mean a female goddess. So it's hard to know, but it probably, as it's understood with forces, probably Azazel, because he's the destroyer of the antediluvian world. He's the one who will lead the angels out of the abyss in Revelation 9 before the midpoint, before Antichrist takes power. And he's the one who taught all the arts of war to the antediluvian world, the complete craft of war, as is talked about in the book of Enoch. And Azazel, we actually get that word in the Bible through
Mhm.
the word scapegoat, which is the second goat that is sacrificed on the Day of Atonement. That goes back to the Hebrew word Azazel. And so you have this very strong God who is degraded to a satyr goat god afterwards, right? Who was the leader of the antediluvian rebellion and the destroyer god, destroyer of the antediluvian world, the one who was piled on with all the sins of the antediluvian world. And we're not told who this scapegoat, Azazel, is being sacrificed for, what sins. I
Mhm.
think he's being sacrificed for the antediluvian sins. And of course, Azazel is depicted as a goat god, as a satyr god, as a Bacchus god, Cern god, Cernunnos god, and
Mhm.
God, and all the different names for the different satyr gods that are out there. And what's interesting about that word satyr, I know I'm on a long rant here, but we get the word watcher 4 times in the Bible, and it's all in the book of Daniel, chapter 4, and it goes back to the Hebrew word ear, IWIR. And satyr is a contracted form of another word that means hairy and shaggy, and goat, which is sa, or Sair, but it's contracted, so it'll be spelled S-A with kind of an apostrophe, then Air for watcher. So a Sair is a hairy, shaggy goat watcher, as opposed to just Air, that's a watcher. And of course, Air is transliterated as satyr or a goat god. And they show up after the flood because they've been degraded, the ones who didn't go to the abyss, just like Satan was degraded to Satan status from Halel and whatever other names and titles that he would have had. So all of that starts to make some sense coming together for understanding how the connections will be related to these ancient gods and to Antichrist and the things that he does in the end time.